Hey team, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about two very exciting releases in the Radical lineup, the Conspiracy Scheme and the Bigfoot. We're going to start with the Conspiracy Scheme, and if you recall, this ball has the same core as the original Black Conspiracy, and that conspiracy was the Radical's best-selling ball of all time. This core contains a total differential of 0.56 and an intermediate differential of 0.21 undrilled. Of course, new to this ball that the Black Conspiracy did not have was dynamic core, outer core material. That's the blue stuff that you see when you drill into the outer. That means that this ball is going to have harder hitting power at the pins because the higher strength to weight ratio transfers more energy to them. And of course, this is wrapped in the Motion Magic solid cover stock. You'll remember the Motion Magic nameplate from the Radical Trailblazer. That was a hybrid version with a little bit of traction sparkle additive. You'll see in the purple that this one also has traction sparkle additive, so effectively this is the solid version of that exact same cover stock, which was a little bit of a slower response to friction, but it's very, very continuous. The goal for this new Motion Magic cover stock was to make sure that the motion continued very well on the back of the lane, and I say mission accomplished. Moving over now to the Bigfoot, I'm very excited to talk about this brand new core design because it's a Mo Pinnell core design. He and his CAD team were able to talk to me about the ins and outs of some new technology that they're bringing to the symmetrical cores before his passing, and I'm excited to pass along this information. Of course, you see on top it's got that knob. That's not new. In most Radical symmetrical cores, that knob is there, so that way you can drill the fingers pin up or pin down. Either way, that knob remains intact and helps keep the total diff up. Now what you'll notice is this symmetrical core has moment arms on the left and right and the front and back. If you put the thumb in the theoretical mass bias on this core, 6 3/4 from the pin, and you drill right through that front knob, you can actually increase the intermediate differential of this ball more than you can on most normal symmetrical balls after drilling. So what this means is this core is kind of a bridge motion where it's got a little more asymmetry and a little more kick on the back of the lane than a standard symmetrical ball might, but it's not quite as asymmetric and not quite as sharp or responsive in the mid lane as some of the higher powered asymmetrical balls. It's going to be perfect for getting more shape out of a symmetrical ball than you're used to seeing. This one also has dynamic core, the blue stuff that we talked about with Conspiracy Scheme, for harder hitting power, and of course this one is now wrapped in the TP1 Plus cover stock. That's the same cover stock formulation with the same sparkle enhancing traction additive that is found in the Results Plus, and that is currently Radical's most down lane motion overall in terms of cover stock strength. So without delay, I'm going to take you to the comparison chart and show you where Bigfoot and Conspiracy Scheme stack up relative to the rest of the Radical lineup. This chart contains every release in the Radical lineup for an entire year. You can also find this chart on radicalbowling.com by clicking on one of the newest releases, scrolling down to Resources, and then clicking on Comparison Chart. There is a slight difference because the radicalbowling.com chart has every release in the current Radical product lineup, and my chart has every release for an entire year. So some subtle differences in balls that are on the chart, but otherwise the exact same information. These balls are sorted by oil volume from lightest on the left to heaviest on the right, and by response to friction, with the sharpest balls toward the top of the chart and the smoothest balls toward the bottom of the chart. Our newest releases, Conspiracy Scheme and Bigfoot, are highlighted in yellow. Conspiracy Scheme is built to handle a medium-heavy amount of total oil volume. It's between a smooth and a strong reaction overall. It is certainly the smoothest overall front to back of any of the asymmetrical balls currently in Radical's lineup. You'll notice that it sits neatly next to Payback, but that is the downfall of these 2G charts. I don't think they tell the whole story, which is why I take the time to talk about them. I would argue that despite the fact that the scheme goes longer, it's still able to recover a little more and just cover more boards total than Payback does. Despite this, I do think there's an upper limit to Conspiracy Scheme's range. I wouldn't use it on very, very heavy or extremely wet, dry conditions that had a huge amount of total oil volume in the middle of the lane because the compounded finish is going to make it just a little long and a little smooth to respond. If you bowl on flooded conditions, I can easily see this being your number 2 ball as a step down from either Results or Informer. If you bowl on more friction or you have more over-under on more medium conditions, I could easily see this as being your number 1 ball out of your bag on the fresher patterns where you can keep your angles more medium, get it through the fronts a little more easily than some of the bigger ASIMs, and still have the control off the end of the pattern that you're looking for on fresh. When the Conspiracy Scheme is a little too much ball, or it's just a little too smooth when you start to step in, a step down to a sharper asim like a Trailblazer or an Incognito would be a great play, but also the new Bigfoot would be a nice step down, and it's not such a big change in motion shape to the other shiny asims. Speaking of Bigfoot, Bigfoot's built to handle a medium to medium heavy amount of total oil volume, and is in the strong category of ball motion, but it's definitely shading toward the sharp side. It's definitely the sharpest symmetrical ball that's in Radical's current lineup, and possibly the sharpest symmetrical ball that they've ever made. It gives some of the higher powered shiny asims a run for their money in terms of motion at the back of the lane, as you can see by the way it's charted. You'll never get quite as much shape off the end of the pattern on a symmetrical ball as you will with an asymmetrical ball, with all the other factors being equal because of the intermediate diff offered by the asymmetrical balls. But the uniqueness of this core shape that I detailed earlier, combined with this great TP1 Plus cover stock, means that this Bigfoot is no slouch at the back of the lane. Of course, it does it in a nice round archy continuous way that you expect out of symmetrical balls, a little less jerk stop than you see out of the asims. Because of this ball is going to be very versatile. I think higher rev players might consider this one a benchmark, although it might be shading just a little too clean and sharp to be a benchmark ball, but it sticks to the mid lane with a surprising amount of confidence for as sharp as it's ranked. It's definitely a step cleaner than the Payback that covers a similar amount of total boards. It gets down the lane quite a bit noticeably further before making its move much later and making up a lot more ground on the back of the lane than the much more even early rolling Payback. I see Bigfoot being a great step down from either the Conspiracy Scheme or one of the bigger asims like Max Results or Informer after the mids have gone just a little too much for those balls to be practical. And of course, once the Bigfoot starts reading too much at the back of the lane or is just too early for the pattern that you're bowling on in later transition, then a step down to something like an Intel Pearl SE or a bonus Pearl is gonna be perfect to round out your block. That's all the information I have on these two brand new releases in the Radical lineup available in pro shops worldwide right now. If you have any questions or comments about any of these balls or any of the balls in the Radical lineup or how they fit into your game or your lineup, then feel free to comment below. While you're here, make sure you like and subscribe to Bowling Buckosh on YouTube, Facebook, and now on TikTok, where I make short 1-minute reviews. I'm always making our long-form reviews here on YouTube and Facebook, so make sure you check back often as I make new videos as new releases from the brands of Brunswick come out. Until next time, thanks for watching.